thinking of life as a battle, that's going to bring a certain kind of resources, yeah? And survival and determination. And those can be powerful resources and needed at the time. But then if all of life becomes a battle, well, then it becomes exhausting on the person. So it's what metaphor when. When people lived in one world, whether it was the church in the Middle Ages or a large institutional organization, government today, you'll find people with one metaphor, usually having to do with the institution. So, life is war and it works in the military. But people who are outside, people who make their own life, I will see typically a pair. Like, for example, life is a journey, life is exploring, put those together. Or life is a book and life is learning, those two go together. And in a sense, it doesn't matter what your occupation is, because what we do is we rethink our environment in terms of the metaphor. So in the business I sometimes associate myself with, which is trading and finance, one of the fellows who's done very well for himself he says that trading and investing are a game and money is how you keep score. And not surprising. As a young man, when young men are just learning how to spend money crazily, he bought Michael Jordan's basketball shoes. And of course, you could guess that around his office, he has sports paraphernalia, but he's not even in that business. And this goes back to that idea that it's what we have in our minds, what we carry with us, that is shaping what we think, what we see, and what we do. Whether that's about relationships, marriage, life, or money. So just as a way to tune you up a bit more, because when I mention that, people go, and there are 5 metaphors for marriage. Just 5? Be good if somebody made some more. So there's unity, and unity is where we talk about my better half, like 2 halves make a whole, so you can hear that in their language. There's the idea of a partnership. We're both working on the relationship, or we're both pulling together. There's the idea of a relationship as a shelter. There's parent-child. Yes, there is. And this shows up in, President Reagan called his wife mommy. But guys, do you ever call her baby? What's that about? Not everybody does this, but this is another way that people think one person's more mature, one person's younger. And this can get inadvertently played out just because the female of our species tends to be smaller than the male. Just stand up for a moment. Yeah, a lovely height, yes. I'm taller, and so there is a cultural tendency, not to say cultural, there's a biological tendency that then to see her as younger, smaller, more immature, which is not true, of course. Okay, there's one more. Ball and chain, burden, which is the best one? There is no best. What's best is to be able to move from one to the other. Because sometimes you might need to carry or help your partner for a while, or your partner you. And sometimes you are 2 halves of something bigger, and sometimes you are both together creating something. But again, I'm just underlining this point one more time, is how you think about the world will tend to be the world you'll see and experience. To help you along, I'll give you a short example of mine. Hint here, that I didn't buy a house. I would live in apartments in different places, and lived in Tokyo, South America. Each time I'm there, I'll build up a little research library, and I would go out. I lived in Yogi Hachiman in Tokyo. So I didn't have things like a bank account or a car or a house. And so when I was doing the research on the metaphors, I just went, well, of course not. What would an explorer do with a house? They're off exploring. So then I thought, oh wait, this is before the Indiana Jones movies. Didn't have that idea. So I thought, well, wait a minute. And oh no, I forgot to mention, I didn't really have a job. I thought, I know what, I will go and explore something, and then I'll come back and I'll lecture about it. And they'll pay me for that. And then I'll have a place to live. And then I can go explore more. I said earlier, I mentioned a contradiction in money. We enjoy its presence, but we feel even more its absence. What's that about? That's like turning to your spouse and saying, I can't wait for you to be gone so I can miss you. It's emotional we are with money, and yet it demands that we be rational. It's a substance if you have some bills, but it's a completely abstract system all around us, determining the price of things and our value and so many others. It brings up joy or dread, and it's either a debit or a credit depending on what side of the desk you're on. So I made a partial list here of some of the contradictions or paradoxes of money. I'll leave this up, but the reason for these two lines here is that the system 2 on top, usually or not, is running sometimes. And the system 1 we have, usually on the bottom, but not always, is running all the time. And so we find ourselves cycling between these in so many different areas. Money should be rational. We should deal with it objectively. Money is abstract. So it's something in the air that you can with your credit card or your phone. But it's also something you can get pieces of paper or even metal for. Money in itself is worthless. This is intrinsic value. It's not made of anything valuable. It's not made of diamonds or platinum. It's made of paper or plastic. And yet at the same time, it's determining the worth of everything around us. Depending on our thoughts at the time, money might be dirty or clean. But whatever the time, money has the authority. I can't give you that, you don't have the money. Well, you can do that if you have the money. It's an arbitrary authority. This is worth that much and not any more. And meanwhile, that value is arbitrary. I think most of you by now know the story about diamonds are a girl's best friend. Just for the few men in the room that might not know, South African mining and jewelry company of De Beers decided that diamonds should be worth more. So they invented the diamond engagement ring. Yes, 100 years ago, women might have gotten some guarantee for their betrothed. But it would have been a valuable item, like an emerald or a ruby. And by the early advertising campaigns of De Beers, they convinced men that they had to buy women a diamond ring. Not entirely a bad idea. A number of you look really nice with diamond rings. Except they did it to increase the value of diamonds. Buying a diamond is like buying a car. As soon as you leave the shop, it's worth less than you bought it for. In case you're wondering, diamonds are not an investment. But that's just one example of the arbitrary authority of money. That is that there's the metaphoric value of the diamond, and there's what it really is, compressed carbon. See, the thing about money, it's both a sign and a symbol. It's a sign in that it tells you how much any particular bill is worth in the country of the currency you have. But that's a very small importance compared to all of its symbolic properties.